Welcome to LE Solutions for an eazyBI tutorial series. My name is Peter, and in this tutorial we will show you how you can set up eazyBI to create a sprint velocity chart. As you can see, this is the out-of-the-box velocity chart from Jira. The velocity chart shows the amount of value delivered in each sprint, enabling you to predict the amount of work the team can get done in future sprints. It is useful during your sprint planning meetings to help you decide how much work you can feasibly commit to. The x-axis displays the last sprints completed by the team. The y-axis displays the statistic used for estimating stories. In this report, the team is using story points. Estimates can also be based on business value, hours, issue count, or any numeric field of your choice. The gray bar for each sprint shows the total estimate of all issues in the sprint when it begins, also known as story points committed. After the sprint has started, any stories added to the sprint or any changes made to estimates will not be included in this total. The green bar in each sprint shows the total completed estimates when the sprint ends, also known as story points completed. Any scope changes made after the sprint started are included in this total. Let's now go to eazyBI by selecting Apps and then by clicking on eazyBI. We will create a new account by clicking on Create a New Account. Name the account Marvel, which is the name of our project. Select Add a New Source Application. Now it will prompt us to select our source of data. eazyBI supports the import of data from various sources. We will go ahead and select Jira. In the Select Jira Projects section, we will select our project Marvel. Notice that when Marvel is selected, a new section Agile Custom Fields appears because our Marvel project is a Jira software project. We can leave the default selections for now. One of the key sections that needs to be configured properly is the Statuses and History section. In this section you indicate which statuses will be counted in the Issues Closed measure. By default, Closed is selected. If we now look at the Marvel's workflow, we can see that the deployed status is used as the Issues Closed status. We will enter Deployed. So when eazyBI uses the measure Issues Closed, the Issues Closed will be the ones with deployed status. You can also import additional custom fields if you would like for other reports. But for now, since we are building a sprint velocity chart, no new custom fields need to be selected. Let's go ahead and import the data by clicking on Import. Depending on the amount of data you have in your project, the import times will vary. Let's click on Analyze to start building our report. You will notice that by default, various sample reports are created. If you are new to eazyBI, we highly recommend that you review them to get an idea of the different reports that are supported. Now we will create a new folder to group our Agile reports by clicking on New Folder. Let's open the Agile Reports folder. Let's start building the sprint velocity chart by clicking on New Report. We will bring the project dimension to the Pages section. This will help us identify which project we would like to report on. This filter becomes handy if multiple Jira projects are added to this account. We will now open up the Agile Dimensions by clicking on Show Dimensions beside the Agile heading. We will bring the Sprint dimension under the Rows section. Notice that we can now see data being populated in the report. By default, eazyBI always includes the Issues Created measure. You can ignore it for now. You will also see that the projects filter show up. We will select Project Marvel. Also, notice that it shows all sprints collapsed in one entry in the table. We will update the hierarchy of the sprint dimension to list all the sprints in separate rows. Expand the sprint dimension by clicking on the name. Go to the All Hierarchy Level Members section and expand it. Select Sprint. Now we can see that all sprints are listed as individual rows in the table. Let's hide all the dimensions to clean up the screen by clicking on Hide beside Dimensions. We will now expand the Measures dimension under the Columns section to bring the measures that are needed for our sprint velocity chart. Let's show the Agile measures by clicking Show beside Agile. We can now see various predefined Agile measures from eazyBI. We will go ahead and select Sprint Story Points Committed, which are the story points committed when the sprint started. We will also select Sprint Story Points Completed. Finally, we will select the running story points velocity for 5 closed sprints. Now for each sprint you can see the story points committed, story points completed, and the running velocity for the 5 closed sprints. If you have less than 5 sprints, eazyBI will calculate the running velocity accordingly. Let's clean up the table by removing the Issues Created column. Click on the column header and select Remove. Now notice that we still have the No Sprint and Marvel Sprint number 4 in the table as rows. In our project, sprint number 4 has not been started and we definitely don't want to show the No Sprint entry. We will remove these rows by applying a row filter. We will be showing the sprints that are closed and currently active. We can filter this by showing sprints that have sprint story points committed bigger than 0. Click on the Story Points Committed column header. Select Filter Rows, and then the operator bigger than. A new prompt pops up. We will set the row filter to sprints that have sprint story points committed to bigger than 0. Great, now the table looks cleaner. Now the information in the table looks the same as Jira's out-of-the-box sprint velocity chart table. Let's change the table to a bar chart by clicking on bar on top the R table. We will change the bar chart to display vertically. Notice that the running story points velocity for 5 closed sprints also displays as a bar, but we would like to modify it to display as a dash line. Click on the Legends title and modify the type to dash line. Now the running velocity is displayed as a dash line. We can also change the color of our bar charts by clicking on the colored squared and selecting a different color. We can also add the data labels by clicking on the Data Labels button. Now we can see all the values on the graph. Finally, we will add titles to the X and Y axis. For the X axis, we will name it Sprint. For the Y axis, we will name it Story Points. Now let's compare our report with the original velocity chart. It's identical, but it has more features as it displays the running velocity for each sprint. Let's save the report. Finally, we will add this report to the Jira Teams dashboard for our team to see. Go to Dashboard from the top menu and select the Teams dashboard. Let's add a new gadget. Search for eazyBI. We have the options to add a dashboard or a report. In our case, we created a report, so we will add the eazyBI report and close the pop-up screen. In the gadget configuration, select the eazyBI account. Browse to the Sprint Velocity chart and click on Save. We can now see the Sprint Velocity chart that we just created. You can also toggle between the graph and table view by clicking on the table icon on the top right of the gadget. You can also hover over the graph components and it will show you detailed information. And that's how you can configure eazyBI to create a sprint velocity chart. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe for more Jira tutorials.